All right, everybody, welcome to this edition of the PingPod. I've got Mark Smythe with me. Now, Mark Smythe was an Australian champion, an Oceania champion. He's been to the Olympics twice. He's represented Australia on a lot of occasions. He's had some wins over really top-ranked players in the world. And now he's got a really successful coaching program running. So I want to talk to him today a bit about his career and then about his coaching and how players can improve. So welcome, Mark. Thanks very much for coming on the show.
No problem, Jeff. Thank you.
Now, you've got a nickname which is a little unusual. People call you Duck. How did this come about?
Yes, when we were about 14 or 15 and I was just making the first junior state team, and we're just with the close friends that I've made, and apparently they believed I walked like a duck. So they just called me that on one of the years, and it's stuck ever since.
Very good. And now you seem quite fond of the name.
Oh, anything that lasts for a long, long time, you eventually get used to it, and it's just like water off a duck's back now.
Water off a duck's back, indeed. And you quite like nicknames for other people too, do you, I believe?
Yes, yeah, when you have close friends within the sport and you hang around them for many hours every week, yeah, I think it's normal that you have nicknames for all your friends.
It is indeed. So, how did you get started in table tennis?
My father was playing at the local club, the Croydon Table Tennis Club. Yep. And he bought a table for home, and when I was 7 years old, and we just tried at home, and we just played at home quite a bit for a couple of years, and then about 2 years later, that's when I started playing actually competition. So I was about 9 years old when I started playing.
Okay, so how good was your dad at table tennis?
No, my dad was, I could say, a good social player.
Okay, but he loved the sport.
He did, yes. Yeah, and then got me involved because he started playing. Okay,
so then you went down to the Croydon Table Tennis Club. Is that where you first sort of got into a club environment?
That's right, yes. Yeah, when I was 9 years old. The association's been going since 1957, and so it was 1983 when I first went down there and had a go, and they had 10 tables in the venue, and yeah, they had a junior competition on a Friday night, and that's where I started.
Okay, and you seem to have, that club seemed to have quite a few good players around that time. I think Russell Laval was at the club, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He started playing there probably about a year and a half, maybe 1 to 1.5 years after me. Yep. And yeah, we played each other quite a lot. Eventually through the junior pennant. Yep. And obviously played lots of tournaments together through the juniors and then eventually on to seniors. But it wasn't only Russell. There was quite a few older players than us, maybe about 3 years older than us, that were if they had B teams back then for the state teams, they would have been in B teams. So it was actually quite competitive, and there was maybe 8 or 10 players that were quite strong, and they helped, because they were quite strong, they helped Russell and I come through the system at the junior pennant, and yeah, we benefited. Yeah.
So you think that club and that strength there really helped you guys?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. So you started competing, you started making some state teams, is that how it went? And then I think, was it 1988 you actually won the under-15 Australian singles title?
That's right, yes. Yeah, well, first of all, I think you need to enjoy what you do if you want to become reasonably good at it. And I enjoyed playing and played a lot of state tournaments, and we travelled all around the state playing the tournaments as the current juniors do now. And you just improve your level, and if you enjoy it and put a bit more work in, yeah, well, eventually my standard got to state team level, and yeah, it just sort of slowly progressed from there. Very
good. So were you winning a lot of tournaments before that under-15 match? Were you coming in quite confident to that Australian Championships?
That year, I'd say, well, within Victoria, I was number one, but not by a long stretch. Yeah, there was another boy same age as me called Darren Lurie. Yep. And we were pretty close. I probably had the edge on him a little bit, but going into the nationals, you're just unsure because you don't know how, especially in the younger age groups, you don't know how much other players have improved.
Yeah, definitely.
You know yourself, you know the players from your own state, but you don't know the interstate players so much. So I'd say no, I didn't go in there extremely confident, but it was more hopeful and just to try and do the best through the week.
Yeah. So you actually then went on to win the under-17s. So back then they had an under-15s and under-17s. I think that's changed around a bit. But not many people go on to win both of those. I mean, that you must have been proud of that achievement.
That I was, yes, because that was that year, 1990, was my last year as a junior, and that was my year 12 year. So I wasn't playing so much back then through that year of year 12, but still playing all the tournaments, but only playing maybe once or twice a week on top of the tournaments. And so, again, level of confidence, I wouldn't say was that great going into that national championships, but it's competition. Anything can happen, and fortunately enough for me, it worked out well that week.
Yeah, I seem to recall one particular match in that tournament. I don't know if it was the semi-final or not, but I think you were playing Russell Laval and you were down a bit in the first set or something. I don't know if it was like 2017 or something. You hit 3 screaming winners to bring it back to 20-all and then went on to win that match. Do you remember that match?
I have no idea how you remember that. How do you remember that?
I just do. Do you remember it?
Yes, I was in the first set. I was down 2015.
2015 it was.
Yes, and yeah, I managed to hit a few winners near the end of the match, and won that game 22-20. And yeah, the second set was fairly close, but I think from memory I managed to pull away from Russell and win 21-15. But yeah, that was a very, very close match, especially the first set, obviously. And I still can't believe how you know that.
Just stuck in my mind. So you mentioned in that year you didn't do as much training. What about the years before? How much training were you doing as a junior?
Yeah, well, first of all, going back to probably when I was about 10, I was playing basketball at the time, and I actually stopped playing table tennis for 6 months because basketball and table tennis both clashed on the same night with their competitions.
Okay.
And because I was doing better at basketball at the time, I chose to stay with basketball and drop table tennis for a while. So, but after that, when I went back into table tennis, then I stuck with it all the way through. And probably from the ages of 13 to 16, or probably 13 to 15, I was playing maybe 10 hours a week, roughly, which included three weekly competitions, 3 weekly pennants, plus training twice a week.
Okay, very good. So did you give up basketball when you went back to table tennis, or did you keep playing basketball for a while?
I played basketball for a little while, probably for another 6 months after I went back to table tennis, but then even probably my parents said, if you want to become good at something, you need to really focus on that. So I really enjoyed table tennis, and I really enjoyed the different things you can do with the ball, the different spins, the speed of it, the reflexes, and that appealed to me a bit more than basketball. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for people who've never seen you, you've got quite an attacking style. You had one of the strongest forehands, or the strongest forehand in Australia for a long time. Your backhand was awesome. And yeah, like you said, with the different spins, you like to put some different spins on it, some unusual styles. To play against you was a very different game than playing against a lot of other players. So was that just something that came naturally to you, that style?
It probably came naturally in one aspect that my technique wasn't so good as a younger player.
Okay.
And, as a result of that, I got off balance quite easily, and I was producing quite a lot of side spin on the ball when, from a technical point of view, I probably shouldn't have. But it just fascinated me that much that it just stuck with me. I guess in a way, in a bad way, I wasn't listening to the coaches 100% because I enjoyed playing around with the ball, with the spin, and so I guess I improved at doing different things with the ball. Yeah. But as I realised later on, training a lot as a senior, you need a pretty good foundation with your shots. So it took me a while to transfer from a good junior to a good senior.
Okay. So were any coaches trying to coach you out of that style?
Yeah, you could say that. Yes, they were trying to, I guess, clean my shots up. And I rebelled against that a little bit, and I was only worried about doing some different things with the ball. I wasn't worried about keeping 50 balls on in a row. Okay. I wanted to see what different things I can do. And I guess as a result of that, I did become quite difficult to play against because there was no rhythm.
Yep.
I wasn't allowing my opponent to get into a rhythm, but the negative from my end is I had trouble keeping lots of balls on the table as well. So my game wasn't as consistent. It was quite erratic, but I did play around with the spin a lot, and it was difficult to play against, I guess.
Yeah. So if you were coaching yourself nowadays, would you have tried to coach that out of you, or would you sort of encourage that behaviour, or what would you do these days, knowing what you know now?
I would definitely try and coach a lot of it out of myself.
Okay.
As a coach now, I coach nearly the opposite of the way I went through the process of being a player.
Okay. But you've got that hindsight of knowing what that was like personally.
Yes, that's right. Now I do, but I didn't back then. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, but I've learnt my lessons through the good and the bad lessons, and I would probably have a different approach these days.
Okay. So who were some of the most influential coaches that you had?
Probably the most influential person was the national senior coach we had for many, many years, which was Chalan Sun.
Yep.
And he was a national senior coach from 1987 to the end of 96 Olympics. And I was part of the national squad in his system from 1990 onwards.
Yep.
And just the advice he was giving me on the technique side of things, especially, as I said before, when my technique wasn't so good as a junior.
Yep.
And just to keep persevering, and a lot of other things that I guess I rebelled against as a younger player that I changed a little bit as a senior, and as a result of his knowledge as a former Chinese national team member, I learned probably the most from him.
Wow, excellent. Yep. Yeah, that perseverance, I think, even though there's a lot of aspects to it, perseverance is a big part of improving, I believe.
I think it's a massive part. I was fortunate enough, yes, to get good results through the junior years, but after I finished my junior career and then progressed to a senior, my workload in the training increased by fourfold, but my results did not increase in relation to other players that I was beating as a younger player. So I went from training 5 hours a week through year 12 to going into training 20 plus hours, probably up to 30 hours a week. And for the next 2 years, my results actually got worse relative to the players that I was beating when I was a junior. And a lot of players would probably have trouble dealing with that. Now, I did, but down deep, that was what I wanted to do. That was my chosen sport, my chosen activity in life at the time, and I just persevered. And eventually, later on as a senior, through the early 20s, we got better results down the track.
So how hard was it during that time? Like, did it get so bad that you thought about quitting, or was it just, I just need to keep working at this and the results will come?
I never ever seriously thought about quitting. I said it quite a few times, so that I do remember, but never really down deep thought about actually quitting, because that was my passion. That's what I wanted to do. To a degree, I was still succeeding in one way, and to another way, I wasn't progressing as well as much as I wanted to.
Okay, so when you say you were exceeding, you were having some results in tournaments, but just weren't to the level that you were aiming for?
That's right, yes. And did realise the step from a junior to a senior was, at that time, quite substantial. But other junior players of my age, who had probably a better foundation with their shots, they seemed to progress more easily into the senior category, where I had a bit of trouble. So it just took a lot of training, and I changed my thinking around a little bit. And as I said, it was what I wanted to do. So yes, I wasn't happy quite a few times, but it's just what I wanted to do. And fortunately enough, it worked out pretty well in the end. Yeah,
very well in the end. So was there any one thing that changed over those 2 years that suddenly you got results, or was it just that work just started paying off?
No, it was the work that just started paying off.
Yep.
There wasn't one set result or or any set moment that changed anything. It was just a gradual progression. And when I was 21 years old, I think it was, just through a 6-month period, my results just consistently got better, and I went from being ranked number 7 in Australia to number 2 in that year, and yeah, sort of just held my level, kept improving after that. But it was just a gradual process.
Very good. So with that improvement, when did you first get selected for a senior Australian team?
My first actual official selection, ironically, was after the year after I'd qualified for and played at the 1996 Olympics.
It was after?
Afterwards, yes.
Well, there you go. I did not realise that.
I played for Australia for twice before that, but that was because a couple of people had dropped out, and I was never officially selected in a team.
Okay.
My first official selection was 1997 for the World Championships, and that was 1 year after, obviously, the Atlanta Olympics.
Okay, there you go. So that's very interesting. Because there was some controversy before that, wasn't there, with the Polish coach? I remember. I think you were in the same team. We both got kicked out of a team before that. So I think you were selected for one team, but then got kicked out. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes. After the '96 Olympics, yes, there was a national team selected late '96 for the Asian Championships, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, you and I were both selected in the team, and there was certain training requirements which, from my point of view, I was generally meeting, but I missed out on three weeks worth, I think, and of just missing out the actual criteria, and was withdrawn from the team at that time. But there was a changing of the guard in the way that the nationals team was and the national training program was being set.
Yep.
And obviously we both had some issues with the system at the time, but anyway, we worked through it, and
yes, we did indeed. So then, you managed to go to the Worlds in 1997.
Yes, and that was well, back in late '95. We had a national tour. A national team went to Europe for 3 months.
Okay.
Competing in international tournaments. So there was never really a team selected to go to a particular tournament. It was just the players who were full-time players at that time who were top in Australia. Yeah, we did play some international tournaments at that stage.
Okay, and that's when you had one of your best wins ever, I believe, isn't it? Against a Chinese team member called Yan Sen?
Yes, that's right, yes.
So you remember that? I mean, he was ranked 45 in the world, and you took him out. That's a pretty impressive victory.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I was quite surprised. It was the 1995 Swedish Open.
Yep.
It was from memory, it was in a group match. And by that stage, I was quite fortunate because he'd had an ordinary start to the group.
Okay.
And by the time he played me, he realised he couldn't progress out of the group stage going into the knockout. So I think I just got him at the right time.
Brilliant.
I know in my heart that if I play that person another 10 times, he would probably beat me another 10 times. So it was at the right time where mentally he wasn't switched on.
Yep.
But when you're a Chinese national team member, you don't go out there and throw matches either. So
a win's a win. No, that's good.
Yes, I did. It was probably the second best match I've ever played. So I did play quite well, but. Yeah, I'm very happy to have the win.
Very good, very good. So you've achieved a lot. You've won the Australian Open. You've won the Oceania Championships. You've been to 2 Olympics, World Championships. What's your proudest achievement that you've had in table tennis from a playing point of view?
I think as an Australian player, where table tennis is not taken so seriously, and we have to, generally as top Australian players, if you want to compete against better players, you have to go overseas. And every time you go overseas, there's hardly any support for you.
Yep.
Due to that fact, probably the proudest moment or the biggest moment I had was just participating in the Sydney Olympics.
Okay.
Because that's the first and only time we've... and again, as you know, we had thousands of people cheering for us, and... that's probably one of the biggest buzzes I've ever had in the sport.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, the amount of support. Yeah, I mean, still people tell me that, you know, it was a shame you couldn't go to Olympics overseas, but having it in Australia, we had that support, was just unbelievable.
That's right. Yeah, and it's the first time ever you get thousands of people on your side.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's just and traveling overseas and playing tournaments where you're just a minnow, and you know, no one's really watching your matches. No one really cares whether you win or lose in the stands. So,
Yep.
so that was just, it was such a turnaround, and yeah, that's something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So we talked about you beating Yan Sen, but in that Olympics, you also had another fantastic win, beating a Korean who was like ranked 58 in the world at the time.
Yeah, he was actually from Hong Kong.
Oh, from Hong Kong, yeah, not Korea, Hong Kong. Sorry.
I played another player from Korea who I lost to, but yeah, the player from Hong Kong. Again,
Yan Chu Leong or something like that.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, I'll go back to the other pretty good win I had. I think it was just I got the play at the right time. I believe he was very, very nervous and he didn't handle the situation all that well. And I believe I heard after the match, the match was live, went live into Hong Kong.
Really?
So my feeling was he succumbed to the pressure, and his standard dropped down to my level. And again, with the crowd support, I think the whole situation got to him. And lucky for me, I scraped out of the match.
It was an amazing match. There was a lot of cheering going on, a lot of loud clapping and support. It was brilliant.
Yes, and some of that was courtesy of you.
Yeah, well, I was cheering quite loudly. No, it was very good. It was very good. So, so a lot of achievements. So you also went to the Olympics in 1996, didn't you? And you said that was actually, you got selected for Australia after that. But that was quite a tough qualifying in 1996 as well for the Olympics, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the actual qualification was held at Coburg,
yeah,
table tennis club, and that series of matches we had, there was 15 matches all played over 3 days. And again, back in those days, the games were up to 21. So we were playing 5 best-of-5 matches per day for 3 days straight. And yeah, nearly everyone.
Yeah, against the best players from the Oceania region. That was a tough gig, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So but that's the way I believe a process should be to qualify for an Olympics or even a Commonwealth Games these days. It should be a tough process because it has a very good history to say the best players get through. So yes, it is a tough process, and everyone's pretty tired after the end. But I think it's nearly bomb-proof, this system. So I fully support it.
Very good, very good. Yeah. So after the Sydney Olympics, did you keep playing, or is that when you decided to stop playing?
I basically dropped out of playing for any national teams.
Yep.
That was it, yeah, because after 2000 Olympics, then I just fully focused on coaching.
Okay.
And
so
I still played some tournaments on the state scene for another 2 years. Yep. And played in the individual nationals, in the nationals for the individual events, in 2001. But it was more just because I enjoyed playing, and there's no way that I could have stopped cold turkey straight after the Olympics and stopped playing full on. So because I enjoyed it and did enjoy playing, I just kept playing some tournaments for another couple of years and then stopped after that.
Okay. So did you feel like you'd reached the best you could, or was it more now it's the time I've got to go out and earn some money, or what was the sort of main reason for stopping playing? Because a lot of players these days, if you look at like Jorgen Persson and stuff, can play top level until they're 40 odd.
Yes. Well, I guess in Australia it's a little bit different compared to someone like Jorgen Persson from Sweden, where the sport's taken more seriously and they're professional.
Yep.
There's probably a lot of very, very good players out there in their mid to late 40s still playing professionally, so still earning a living out of playing table tennis. So in Australia you can't do that. So It was more a decision where after the Sydney Olympics, I now had to take the next step of my career and trying to earn a living that way. But before that, I was coaching. I mean, I chose coaching as my career, and I was coaching for 3 years full time prior to the Sydney Olympics anyway.
Yep.
So the transition to go from being a part-time player, part-time coach to a full-time coach and a non-player for Australia at least was quite easy.
Yep. So now you're coaching full-time, and you've actually got a really successful program going. I think there's a stat that I heard recently was there's something like 45 of your players have won Australian titles. Does that sound about right?
Nearly, not quite. It's not 45 players. I'd say probably around 45 titles.
45 titles.
National individual titles. Yeah, it has been quite successful. I've sort of built my coaching career or the program that I have sort of from scratch. From when I first started in 1997.
Yep.
Took quite a few years, obviously, to build something, to get off the ground. You start with a couple of players and you coach them for a couple of years. You build their level up, then they quit. Then you've got to, lucky enough, you get some more younger players to coach and you build them up to a standard. Then they stop. And then, so probably from the third generation of players that I coached, that's when the results started to come along. I was improving my coaching ability as well. Yep. And now, I mean, nowadays, yeah, I coach in a different way than I used to when I first started, and I've learned to manage the coaching of developing players over a 4 or 6 year period much better than I did when I first started.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you do better now that you didn't know when you first started?
I think definitely from a technical point of view, I've learnt a lot. And so from a technical base, I coach differently to what I used to. And my wife, who was a professional player in China, has also helped me that way in understanding what players need to do from a very young age and how their muscles should move and what just the general body movements and the sequence of movements. So I've sort of learnt a lot from her as well. Learned from myself, trial and error with players.
Yep.
So that's helped a lot. And the other big thing is just managing players' strokes as the months and years go by, how to slowly link those shots together and when to start introducing new shots into their game relative to their development as well. So I think the management of the coaching has probably definitely changed a lot over the years.
Okay, yeah, so that's an interesting point. So say you take a beginner, how do you sort of get there? How do you improve their stage? And and how do you know when you should introduce that next step?
Well, it's quite a slow process. And again, as a player, you learn a lot to know that things don't happen overnight.
Yep.
And so it is a slow process of just building the basic shots for players in the first 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. If a player is playing more, obviously there's a higher chance they're going to improve quicker.
Yep.
And as they're improving their shots, then you work on just slowly linking some shots together. So after a 3 or 4 year period, you've got, the players can play the basic shots hopefully well enough relative to a Victorian or Australian level. And if they go on and get better after that, then you can start to teach them more about the knowledge of table tennis and maybe tactics. But definitely in the first handful of years, it's more about just developing the shots by piece, and slowly putting those pieces together. And it just takes time, and that's something I've learned a lot over the years. And just to be patient and to try and get the players to be patient and the parents as well.
Yep.
And get them to understand if they want to make giant steps in a short time, then they have to put in lots of work. But if they're don't want to go down that path, then it is just a steady process over many years.
Okay. Yep. That's good advice. So I mean, yeah, like if a junior wants to become like the national junior champion, how many hours, is there like a formula for how many hours they should be practicing, or does it really depend on the person?
Well, I guess I did put up a little formula in one of my articles in a newsletter about 12 months ago.
Yep.
And that was just on the experience I had as a player myself and as a coach of developing players and seeing players either be a national champion or a top 5 or top 10 player in Australia. So I used that as my data really to put together a formula. So yeah, it was around, I think from memory, to be in the under 13, to have a good chance to be an under 13 national champion, to play at least 10 hours a week for a minimum of 2 years.
Yep.
Or have played the sport for around 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
And that was just my experience of coaching players over the years to end up achieving that level at around for an under 13, and also my experience as a player.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, if you look at all that data, it seems that the formula seems to hold up quite well, which kind of means that in some ways that talent is almost less important than putting in the work.
I think for a high skill sport such as table tennis, that can be the case. Talent will definitely take you a long way at the younger ages.
Yep.
But just even looking at the players who have been a national champion over the last 10 years in the under 13 or the under 14 age group, which we had for quite a few years, even those players, some of those players were quite talented, but they've been also playing the sport for at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah.
Talent will take players, I think, quite a long way at the early ages, but they also generally have needed to be playing for the sport for quite a while as well. Mm-hmm. But then as you get older, that work ethic just slowly takes over the talent, and it's the ones who are willing to work hard at the older ages that will generally be the better players. Okay,
yeah, that's interesting. So once the player reaches a certain level, you said you start talking more about tactics. So what sort of tactics do you talk with players about?
It can depend on their style as well.
Yep.
But generally just to help them on what works for them.
Yep.
Some players, it can be a psychological thing that some players probably need to rev themselves up a bit more. Other players need to stay calm a bit more. So that's from a psychological point of view. If you call that tactics or not.
Yep.
For me, I do. That for players to be in their comfort zone mentally, and then just to find ways in which they can win more points against each style of player or each player itself. Again, as a coach trying to build up good players over many years, I don't think that tactics are probably as crucial in the younger age years, but they become a bit more relevant and more crucial in the older age groups.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned the mental side of things. Do you think that's a big part of the game, and should juniors be aware of this and should it be something they focus on?
I think as they get on in their years, and I'm talking as they get on, say, past 14, 15, 16 years old, then yes, I think that becomes more important. I think at the younger ages, it's probably more important they just learn how to play some shots, enjoy the game, play hard, win matches, lose matches, but not worry about the psychological aspect too much. There's plenty of years if players go on and play in the older age groups. There's plenty of years you can learn all that. Okay.
Now, table tennis is one of the few sports, I'm not sure if it's one of the few sports, but where during matches, at the end of each set, you get a chance to go and talk to the player, whereas in like tennis, you don't get that sort of chance. What sort of advice do you give during matches to players, and do you think the coach can play a big role in a match?
I think in the better standards, yes, the advice I think a coach can give is more important than at the lower levels, say through the junior age groups. And it's just the type of advice, you're just trying to help them find ways to win more points.
Yeah.
in the end, when that's what it's all about. To try, if you can win more points, you obviously have a very good chance to win the match.
So it might just be picking up on a weakness of the opponent, or some kind of serve they don't like, or where to place the ball, things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, just anything where you can help the player find an opportunity to win some extra points. And it's also you need to know the player. It's better that you know the player that you're helping as well, because maybe you suggest something, but they may not be able to possess the skill to use it and implement it successfully against under pressure.
Yep.
So that's why I go back to saying that I don't think the tactics should be as important in the younger age brackets, because generally the skill level of younger players isn't so good.
Yep.
So
at the younger ages, really, if you can just keep more balls on the table, you're going to win the match.
In very basic terms, yes. And then it gets more complicated, obviously, as you get older, as you get physically stronger, and you can impart more power and spin on the ball.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's some good advice. So in Australia, like you mentioned a couple of times, table tennis is not the most popular sport here by a long way. What are some things that we can do to make table tennis more popular?
Well, it usually comes down to trying to increase ways of getting players to earn more money.
Okay.
I strongly believe that if the top players in Australia were able to earn more money, and like the professionals do in many countries in Europe, then there's a higher chance we're going to get more good juniors coming through to want to become a good senior. So I think it's the financial aspect of it. Definitely players play and go on and become a good senior because they want to, regardless whether there's a financial incentive there or not.
Yep.
And that's happened for 50, 80, 100 years.
Yep.
But the world's changing in the last 10, 20, 30 years, and the finances for everyone is becoming more important.
Yep.
And so as I've seen Australia, unfortunately, just slowly drop a little bit in its status in the world.
Yep.
The financial rewards for the players hasn't increased as the generations have gone on.
Okay. Yeah. So you think if we can provide more money, that would help the top level players, but would that also feed through to just getting more players involved as well? You think?
I believe that, yes. But the first one is to try and find ways to encourage the good junior players to go on and want to become a good senior. In terms of getting more players into the sport, probably a different issue.
Yep.
Something we probably won't talk about here today, but
yep.
I think it's a different issue. But just for the elite level, even from juniors to seniors, yeah, it's just finding ways to reward players to improve their levels.
Yep. So have you personally been able to, like through your coaching, encourage players to stay on into the senior level, or is that more just a personal decision for each player as they grow older?
I've had a lot of difficulty in trying to get a good junior to go on and become a good senior, or at least continue to play as a senior.
Yep.
Over the many years that I've been coaching, there's only 2 players that I've coached who actually go on and who I've coached from a younger age in the junior ranks to actually go on and keep playing senior tournaments as a senior. So I've found it very difficult. And so I believe if I found it difficult, I think others would be in the same way.
Yeah, it's a problem for everyone. I mean, we just don't have that many seniors coming through, so it's clearly a problem for everyone. And I'm not sure that there's an easy solution at this point.
I think the solution's there. I think it's easy to identify, but very, very difficult to find a way to how to get it.
So you think if we could provide more incentive financially, that would be the solution? Yes,
and I believe instead of a very small percentage of good juniors going on to play, we have a high dropout rate from juniors to seniors. So I think if there were more financial rewards there and greater financial rewards, we would have a higher percentage of going on to continue to play as a senior.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so the people that have been watching this on PingSkills will have been watching for quite a while now. So I just want to give them a bit of advice from you, the years of experience that you've had, or just wondered if you could give just a couple of points about a player that wanted to go on and represent their country. Just some advice for that sort of person.
If you've got that type of goal, never give up. But at the same time, you need to be realistic.
Yep.
And just persevere and persevere. I never thought I was ever going to represent Australia when I was 13 or 14. So I guess this advice is going out more to the younger players,
yep.
Your younger viewers, and just to keep persevering. And even if things don't work out in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if that's something you really want to do and you're willing to put the work in, generally good things will come your way down the track. It may or may not be exactly what you're after, but good things will come your way if you keep persevering and working hard.
Yep. That's excellent advice, Mark. I think, sometimes it can be just around the corner and you just need to just keep working through it and they will come.
And sometimes you don't know it. You don't know those good things are just around the corner, but that's why you just got to keep working hard and, just as I said, never give up.
All right, well, that's great advice. I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks very much for doing the interview. If people are interested in your coaching program, is there any way we can put them in contact with you? Is there a website or something, or can they contact an association or something?
Yeah, well, they can just contact me personally.
Yep.
Either through email.
Yep.
Is ducksmythe@hotmail.com.
There we go. There's the nickname in there. So Smythe is SMYTHE.
That's right. Yes, Smythe with an E.
So
yes,
ducksmythe at Hotmail.
Or just contact me on my mobile, which is 0411 493 054.
Excellent. That's great. Because obviously you're passionate about table tennis, so you love to hear from people about table tennis?
I do, yes, and I'm also trying to implement a new thing that I've designed for the sport, which
yep.
is there to try and help encourage players to improve their level and hopefully offer some good financial rewards, which at the moment our current system probably is lacking a little bit.
Okay, would you like to talk a bit about that now?
Oh, okay. Yes, it's I've designed a new competition model,
yep.
and I've named the model as the Mark Smythe Rapid Fire Challenge.
Yep.
And it's designed to try to put money back into the players. It'll be all the entry fee money that goes into an event. Most of that will go back out in prize money to players.
Yep.
The idea is there to, as we both know, and probably a lot of your viewers know who play tournaments, the tournaments can generally drag on to, say, up to 10, 12 hours. And sometimes we're not playing a match for 3 or 4 hours at a time, or maybe an hour or two.
Yep.
So I've just designed something which can be played in a very short amount of time. And most of the players who enter this rapid fire challenge, they will earn prize money. And yeah, it's just something I've designed and I'm trying to get off the ground at the moment, and I'm slowly talking to clubs and associations around Victoria and Australia to see if they want to subscribe to use the model and eventually help the players. And I'm hoping that down the track in the next 2 to 3 years, Australia can have its first professional player using this model.
Fantastic. So how has the response been so far?
Well, I've just slowly started in the last probably 3 or 4 days, actually, just trying to talk to some representatives of various clubs and associations. And as with a lot of new things trying to get off the ground, I'm getting a mixed reaction. But the ones who are quite positive about the idea and the concept, I'm hoping to hear back from them soon. They've got to go and discuss it at their club level, and maybe we can get it off the ground a little bit, and then I think it'll be very, very good for the players and very good for the clubs and associations around Australia.
Okay, excellent. Sounds very exciting. So we'll look out and see how that comes along.
No problem. Hopefully it does go along.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks very much for doing the interview, Mark. I really appreciate it, and I think everyone will enjoy it.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks.